Welcome to AM Best Audio.
After several years of navigating inflation, catastrophe losses, and economic uncertainty, the U.S. property casualty insurance industry is showing signs of stronger underwriting performance, according to the latest Insurance Economics and Underwriting Projections, a forward view report from the Insurance Information Institute and Milliman. While the outlook has improved, insurers continue to contend with significant challenges, including elevated catastrophe risk, geopolitical uncertainty, liability pressures, and an evolving risk landscape. I'm Lori Chortis for AM Best Audio, and Dr. Michel Léonard, Chief Economist and Data Scientist at III, joins us now to tell us more about that. Michel, welcome. It is so wonderful to speak with you again. Thank you so much for joining us today.
And with you as well, Lori, and thank you for the opportunity to reach to your audience.
Well, wonderful. Thank you again. Well, Michel, underwriting conditions are improving across much of the property casualty industry. What's driving that momentum, and how sustainable is it through 2028?
Let's focus first on what we are seeing to date and actual statutory data reporting. After several years of challenging combined ratios, which depending on the line would be significantly above 100, we had from 2023, 2024 to right now, a situation where the combined ratios were improving. In some cases, we had reached a better equilibrium whereby the combined ratios had been below 100 for many years or a few years to average out what was above. So we were heading, or we've reached a point where some of the combined ratios average over the last 6 years just below 100, 98, 97. So that's where we are. Now, there are two challenges, Maury, to that. First is that we're heading into a soft market. And some say the soft market, some of our members are pointing out that the soft market has actually already started. What is relevant about that, what is a challenge about that, is that those carriers who waited longer to increase rates as a result of replacement costs are actually in a tougher place than those who didn't wait as long. So no good deed goes, whatever the expression is. The second issue is what we probably will go into discussing, is not only the soft market, but also the geopolitical implications. So we're very good right now. We're getting at this equilibrium. However, our forecasting in our underwriting projection is based on all things being equal as they are now. And we know that the soft market and potential further geopolitical risk will alter these projections on the downside.
Well, as you mentioned, the report points to geopolitical uncertainty and inflation as ongoing risks. What developments are you watching most closely for the remainder of 2026? And what steps can insurers take now to prepare for those uncertainties?
The main one from a geopolitical standpoint is what's happening in the Persian Gulf, in the Strait of Hormuz, in Iran. We are very concerned about not only contagion, not only oil prices, but mostly for us, the transmission mechanism for us at the P&C industry is some construction materials, especially. So homeowners and commercial property replacement costs and personal and commercial auto replacement costs. Those are where we're seeing the most impact. And this is an issue of reserving going into the rest of this year, for next year, and so forth.
Personal lines have rebounded, but homeowners insurers still face significant catastrophe uncertainty. Michel, how are carriers today balancing growth with increasing climate-related risks?
Two things on that. Averages have improved when it comes to homeowners' combined ratios. However, we're still in a situation where there are great differences between different states and also the makeup of different books. The solution when it comes to managing extreme weather events and other types of structural risks that are emerging is through active selection and risk management, working with reinsurers, dynamic models, and so forth. And this is the challenge where the industry and its regulators are focusing on how to do this in the way that is compatible with backward looking, in a positive way, actual analysis when it comes to moving further.
General liability and commercial auto continue to struggle with elevated loss ratios. Michel, what underwriting or pricing strategies are proving most effective in those challenging lines?
There is a risk driver or an uncertainty driver that impacts both of those, and that's legal system abuse and the uncertainty related to that when it comes to reserving. Now, once we have set this, and that's structural, increasingly systemic, increasingly across lines. Now, if we're looking at each one of those lines separately, there are other considerations that are also driving that, specifically when it comes to commercial auto, which also has the replacement cost challenge. General liability, given the nature of the insurance, has less of a replacement cost. They have, as we know, legal system abuse, nuclear verdicts, impact on reserving. And when we have restatements, an increase in restatements, that speaks to some additional elements that needs to be integrated in actual models.
Michel, looking ahead, what trends or emerging risks do you believe will have the greatest impact on underwriting performance over the next 2 to 3 years? And what should insurers be doing today to position themselves for success?
Well, carriers are always there to pay claims. We have adequate, in a conservative way, assets under management, and we have capital to pay claims on the book. So that's the first thing we want to say. Always communicating that we're able to pay and so forth. There's never a question about that. Looking forward, one of the key differentiator in terms of driving performance is likely to be, or is in our opinion, the ability of actual models to integrate stress tests when it comes to reserving, replacement cost, and so forth. We have, as an industry, a challenge in front of us, where as a result of increased correlation between different risks across the country, whether it is extreme weather events that are increasingly more severe, more frequent, but also more correlated, and also throughout the country with the emergence, for example, of tornadoes as such a central loss driver, we need to work with our regulators to integrate from backward-looking, in a good way, actual analysis, dynamic pricing models and dynamic reserving models. And what I mean by that is, how do we take into consideration what can be referred again in more straightforward terms as stress testing. And the challenge there, this is why the III, we have economists and we have actuaries and so forth, because this is a place where actual science, by definition, rightfully doesn't focus on that. But we need to, and I'm speaking to the Casual Actual Society's reserving seminar, for example, later this year, specifically on how we can cross-fertilize between the economics approaches to stress testing and more dynamic models of actual analysis. So that would be the second, I think, main point that I was saying. The third one would have to do with the challenge of AI. And because we can't have a conversation on Lorraine today without talking about AI, but that's the second part of my title. And I'll give you a closing example. When we hear about the promise of AI, very concrete stuff. Hey, it can right away take care of your inbox. It can generate a list with all the people you've talked to, and then you can rank that. Isn't that fantastic for members outreach, for client management? Okay. I just did that on my inbox at III, and it took me about 40 hours to generate an actionable, in our case, membership list, which tracked who we talked to, who is responsive, etc. That's fantastic asset. It allows us to better serve our members. But it took 40 hours, and I know how to code. So this, quote, low-hanging fruit here took an investment of 40 hours from someone who had some knowledge of coding and so forth, and certainly with that. This here, to me, is understanding that is the biggest challenge, in my opinion, when it comes to unleashing AI's potential. And right now we're in a situation where there's a lot of emphasis on the low-hanging fruit without understanding what it takes to achieve those low-hanging fruit. In this process, we needed a human. We needed someone that was trained. We needed a hand that was willing and trained to use the tool. And that is where the focus right now needs to be as companies, carriers, reinsurers look to harness and unleash the benefits of AI.
Michel, this has been fascinating, so insightful, and as always, it's such a pleasure speaking with you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today. Greatly appreciate it.
Laurie, the pleasure is mutual. And again, thank you for the opportunity to speak to your audience. Thank you so much.
That was Dr. Michel Léonard, Chief Economist and Data Scientist at the Insurance Information Institute. For AM Best Audio, I'm Laurie Chortis.
Looking to get the full attention of the insurance industry? We have the platforms that will do just that. Whether it be AM Best TV, AM Best Audio, Best Review Magazine, or Best Day. Find out more by calling AM Best Advertising Sales at 908-439-2200, extension 5399, and have a great day.